you start off wide, right? With all these options and choices.
Me, I'm looking for substance. So if you can't come with a substance level of conversation, I have no interest.
Okay.
You black man taking a liking to how my lifestyle is living and how I'm going, man. You being intrigued, man. That's very humbling for me, man.
Okay. Fierce and fearless. Why fierce and fearless?
So fierce and fearless for me, I'm a victim of domestic violence as well. And so I think for a lot of people, whether it be male or female, and whether you're building your own career or you're going into a career field to where you may still be working a 9 to 5 or whatever. At some point, we've all had a fear, we've all had a trauma, we've all had something we've had to overcome. And we cannot get to become fearless without first accomplishing fear. So for me, that was a big challenge because I have had so many trials and humps and bumps that I've had to get over through my whole life. And, once I learned how to accomplish that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what it truly means to become successful. You have to fall. You have to have fear. So these are things to me that you have to have in order to truly become in that successful position, to truly understand what true success and leadership means. So like I said, like if we didn't have fear, we can't become fearless. And if we didn't fail, we can't become successful. So to me, it was the only thing that made sense, especially something that could tie into both, like I said, both genders, female and male, of fierce and fearless, because we know both parties have both eventually had to go through that, right, and experience some sort of a change.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Um, Relationships, they're tough, they always come with some sort of difficulty, some road to overcome. And
Yes.
especially when you add in domestic violence. And I'm glad that you mentioned men and women. I think that statistically, a lot of things have been revealed to show that it's not just women who are victimized. And then,
Right.
thanks to a lot of the topics on the internet, relationships being one of the hot topics on the internet, something that we're going to discuss today. It's been shown that, it's other forms of, well, let's say this, it's been normalized, those other forms of abuse outside of just the general guy and the wife beater running in the house drunk, from hanging out all night long. So there's other forms. There's financial manipulation, there's emotional manipulation, there's child custody manipulative behaviors that's been exposed. Um,
Yes.
all types of stuff that we can see. How would someone? So why don't you say? Why don't you? Let me ask you this. I just had a serious tongue twist. That's gonna happen a lot. My brain
That's
is
okay.
just the wiring has 43 has just destroyed my brain, right? And having a lot of drinks sometimes. No, I'm just joking. But um, how can someone? How did you get out of the? How did you get out of the abusive cycle that you were in to become fearless?
I had to take a step back and I had to look at the whole entire situation. I had to also reach very deep down inside myself and remind myself who I truly was. And remember what I was designed to do. Remember my strengths. I also had to remember my value because when I say he literally almost stripped me completely of my value, that is basically where I mean, like I had a very hard time even looking in the mirror for years after this. To this day, it's still kind of a challenge for me to do at times. But to break the barrier, I had to start with the mirror. I had to
Hmm.
start looking at myself because I knew that if I couldn't find that love for myself again, that strength for myself, there was no way I was going to pull myself out of it. And so I also had my daughter at the time, who was probably maybe 6, 8 months. And so that alone was enough for me to also say, hey, I've got to do something. It's time for a change because I did not want her going through that. So, and actually, I'll tell you what, my daughter was probably more so a year when this all first started. So, um, I started also writing poetry. So, writing also is what saved me. That's basically kind of how I wrote my first book, The Anchor Holds. Again, it's a book of poetry, but it's all things that truly happened or transpired at some point in my life or with someone that, was in relation to me. So all based off real life experiences. But yeah, that was it for me, is having to again remember who I was and the value that I carried, and that, I had to love myself enough to pull not only myself up, but my daughter out of the situation.
Wow. And you are out of the situation completely,
Oh,
I take it.
absolutely. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So he can't show up, right? Like, hey, I fixed it. I'm better now.
No.
I'm ready to start this thing back up. I'm ready to traumatize you a little bit
Again.
more if you allow me to just walk. It's almost like when you're dealing with abusive people, it's almost like vampires,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
how, say, for instance, like a lot of people have watched that movie Sinners. If you
Yes.
haven't watched Sinners, it's an incredible movie. I hate movies, especially with good looking dudes like Michael B. Jordan in there. I don't like to watch them with my wife. I'm just joking. Only ugly people that I can watch with her. No, no, it was an excellent movie. I loved it from start to finish, and he did a wonderful
Mhm.
job playing both of those characters. But to the vampire analogy, um, they always try to come in, right? Even when they've been ousted, you see them at the door, like that white Irish vampire at the door, like, man, just let me in, just let me come in. And I see a lot of people backtrack and backslide, and they eventually let those people back in. And
Mhm.
to me, I kind of feel like that's something that has happened, or something that you've kind of learned that behavior from the past, maybe like something that you've seen in your family. You've had cycles of abuse that are generational. Have you experienced that as well in your family?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think at this point, any family to say that they don't have some sort of trauma or issues or whatever is probably definitely hiding something, because I
Mm-hmm.
think it runs in every family. I don't care whether it's rich, poor, middle class. I think every family has it, especially because, we're changing. Times are changing. And
Right.
how we're doing things now, how we're showing up now, how we're communicating now is definitely not how things were going on back, way back in the time. Um, I was telling somebody the other day that, I think a lot of the older generation has issues with communication or trauma or whatever, because, that generation, it was like they were brought up in secrets. Like their household was just a secretive household. Like you better not go outside and say this. You better not tell such and such. And so a lot of those older people have carried that their whole life and not ever dealt with it. They've never told anybody, they've never talked about it, they've never put it out on their own table to try to sort it out, because they've always been taught, you hold on to this, you don't speak it.
Yeah.
And we
Um,
know how dangerous that can be, right?
no, yeah, definitely. I think that's a part of the myth of Black resilience, you know,
Yes. Mm,
um, and that's funneled through our whole culture. That the more you take, the stronger you are, the more resilient you are. You must be strong.
yes.
You must be tough. Sad to say, our grandmothers taught us that, great grandmothers taught us that resilience that we hold on to, that's toxic to our culture today,
Yes.
with the things that we are willing to put up with in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our cultures, in our global connections to the world. And
Mm,
I wanted to say that, I wanted to bring that up about the generational side of this, because I feel like that is one of the main indicators of what you will take when it comes to abuse when you become older and you start to develop relationship patterns.
mhm.
You will overlook the trauma that you've already taken in as a child, which is, trauma is, it can make you a tougher person. I've been in a war. I've been in a lot of, raised on the west side of Chicago. I've seen some trauma in my own family as well. It'll make you
Mhm.
stronger, but that strength is actually a door that is being pushed open wider and wider. It makes you a
Yeah.
soft target for abuse when you get older, right? So even the
Yeah.
men who, or women and men who have been abused and traumatized, they look for that same person that they grew up with in their household, possibly on the other side of that trauma, who was the victim. So the cycle completes itself. Um, so what are some other indicators that women and men should look for? Let's start with women, because I can tell you what men should look for, but what can women look for in early signs and stages of an abusive relationship?
Neglect. First sign for me was neglect, and I didn't pay it any attention, especially because I was a young mom at the time. I was going to school, I was working, um, and so things like that you kind of just let slip to the back of your mind until it's bam right in your face, until it's too late. So yeah, I'm definitely going to say um, neglect, being silenced, not being validated. The validation, I think, was definitely a big piece for me because, I would notice like after, like I said, the neglect started. And then, after that, it was like that obviously started going into arguments, right? And then those arguments would start to spiral. And it was like with each argument, he would go into shutdown mode. He wouldn't respond, or he would twist it back to where it was like my fault. So I mean, he could have literally just hit me upside the head with a pot or a pan. I'm just being, dramatic right now, but I'm just saying. And he would act as if like it was my fault, as if like I picked the pan up and I hit myself upside the head with it. Um, or again, I'm sitting here trying to address what the problem is, and he just doesn't want to talk about it. He's ready to leave, or he's ready to hang the phone up or shut down or go to bed. And so that was another big problem for me because it's like we keep piling on all these issues and I'm not being heard. And he's just walking around like everything is a-okay and there's no problem, or it's my fault or whatever. And then he would wake up and act as if like nothing ever happened. Like it's a whole, brand new day. We don't pay attention to what happened yesterday. And like I was supposed to just forget and go on about it.
Okay.
And so then it kind of went from that to these little slight, maybe like a little slight push or something. And yeah, I definitely really should have caught that red flag early because no man should ever put his hands on a woman, period. I don't care if it is just a little push. I don't care what, but again, I didn't really, go too far into it at that point. And so I let that slide. Didn't let it slide. I mean, obviously we argued about it, but I didn't like, call the police. I didn't pack a bag, things that I should have done. And so that led into the actual hitting. And so,
Okay.
like I said, just, and it doesn't mean it's all going to start within that step. But for me, that's where it started. Those were the key things that today, if I could go back and tell myself, that's what I would have paid attention to.
Now, uh, I want to address something with victimizers and victims.
Mhm.
Um, they almost seem to kind of be in like a yin and yang kind of cycle together, you
Yes.
know? Um,
Yep.
and one of the key components to becoming a victim, to my understanding, is your ability to not value being alone or having abandonment issues where you cannot exist without a person around you in a relationship.
Yes.
And I bring that up because when I hear people speak on one side of the equation, the victimhood side, right? Um, I can also think about like, hey, and I can speak from my own experience. I'm sure I've had multiple abandonment. I had abandonment syndrome. I definitely felt like I couldn't exist without a partner. Um,
Uh-huh.
but what I'm getting at here is you victimize yourself before you ever are a victim, right? To some degree, because your ability to not value your time and not be able to see yourself without a relationship, sets you up for the victimhood that's coming. So I did want to bring that up. The other thing I wanted to do, I wanted to push back just a little bit, because you did make the statement that no man should ever hit a woman. But statistically, and I'm speaking for men, this is the Kevin Samuels post era, right? So everybody is, hot and heavy on relationships. And one thing that was valid is that men shouldn't hit women and women shouldn't hit men. And that's what men always say. Well, why is it always one way? Because I've seen some women go upside some men's heads. They ain't never been touched. As soon as that happens, the man returns fire, good or wrong, right or wrong, whatever. And then here comes the instant victimhood. You hit me. How could you hit a woman? What do you say to women who can't control themselves emotionally?
I mean, I was actually just having this conversation earlier with somebody else. You're right. The table was definitely both-sided. And I feel like for so many years, we've put more focus on women with domestic violence than we have bringing in the men. And I've definitely seen it on the other side. I have. And it's really frustrating, even as a female, to know that we allow ourselves to get to that level, especially because, we're supposed to be the nurturers, the caretakers, the love, and to allow ourselves to get to that point, there's something wrong. And that is, what I hope we can address at some point someday, as to, not just why is one party feeling this way or getting to this point, but why are both parties? But yet I really want to know why or how are my women getting to this point? Because, there's a difference in being tired and frustrated to being just absolutely obstructive, dangerous. I feel as any party, if you feel you're getting to that point, it's time to pack a bag or it's time to go get help. Obviously, you're not fit to be around each other. And I just can't understand what it is about people that when they know they're to that point, why do they continue to allow themselves to be within that vicinity? And again, I can't say that someone is right or wrong because I haven't allowed myself to get to that point. So I can't answer that question, but it is a question that I would love to get a deeper understanding, because in my mind, again, if I feel that I'm going to get to that level, I know that it's time for me to remove myself from the situation, which anytime I feel something is getting too toxic, too negative, or it's not going anywhere, I walk away because I don't want to get to that level.
Right.
But I feel like we're getting so many people that they know how they are. They know how they react when they get to that level, but yet they're not removing themselves from that level until after the fact. And then it happens, and then they're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, but the thing is, you let it get to that point. Right. So at what point are we going to say enough is enough? And at what point are we going to say, did you or did you really not mean to do that? Yeah,
the quarrelsome woman is addressed in the Bible. You mentioned that women, should be the nurturers, the peacemakers, to some degree. And I agree with that. But it's not every instance that a woman can actually be like that. I mean, especially if she's provoked, time over time. So I do get where a woman would snap. I do get where anybody would snap in those circumstances. In a troublesome and quarrelsome relationship, the dynamics are there because you're not even existing. You're just shooting rockets at each other every day. It's like the Gaza Strip inside of your home, So the other part of that would be like, you ask, where do women develop that from? Where do men develop that from? All of it comes from childhood trauma.
Right.
All of it comes from all of it comes from modeling past relationships. So, I pick on our parents about not having these loving, genuine relationships with one another, teaching us that this is the way a good relationship is about, or looks. This is what a loving, caring, nurturing woman or a strong, dependable, reliable man looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to go back to that. But I did want to bring up a juxtaposition there, because on one side of the coin, when you were talking about your relationship, you mentioned that when that person who you were with, when he wanted to shut down and walk away, you wanted to continue the constructive argument. You didn't say you were arguing. You just said you had a perspective that you wanted to get across. Um, do you think that either side of that is healthy? I mean, because you want to get your point across, he wants to walk away. You both kind of feel abandoned, right? At the same time. How do you address that?
Agreed. And that's what I'm saying. Like we've got to figure out the balance between the communication here between men and women, and what is the proper way to communicate with each other. Because as you and I both know, you do not think like I do, and nor do I think like you do. And I mean, obviously, we know that even all women, we all don't necessarily, but 9 times out of 10, we're going to think and react the same way compared to a man thinking and reacting in the manner that we would, right? Vice
Right.
versa. So I think the core of this comes down to the problem of communication and us truly understanding each other, and where that button is. Because no, you're right. It's not okay if it is already at level 2000, then it's definitely not okay to try to still push that conversation. But I think what needs to happen and what should be okay is the fact that you take a pause, you come back, and then you talk about it like actual adults, and you piece out the pieces and you work through it. And then,
Mm-hmm.
if once you're done with the conversation, it's still a no go or whatever, okay, that might be when you decide, okay, is it time to throw the towel in? Do we walk away? Like, and I think this is where the problem is coming in at, because too many arguments are going left unsettled, unsolved, whether it's on the woman's end, the men's end, or both ends. And it's just piling up on every single day, every situation. And so finally, you get to where you have the big one, and somebody's going to blow a gasket, right? Because again, we can only take so much as a human. But until we're real with ourselves and until we're real with each other, we don't know what that button is, because we're not sharing, hey, you're pushing it. And we're not acknowledging or respecting that boundary, which again is hard to acknowledge and accept if we're not sharing that with each other.
Yeah, that was right on the tip of my tongue. Boundaries, because what I've learned over the years in my own relationships, including my current marriage, is boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And boundaries are blurry because
Yeah.
you just mentioned wanting to talk when I don't want to talk. And one of my things in a relationship is I'm not going to have every conversation every time at that time. Doesn't mean
Right.
that we can't have the relationship conversation. But the first thing that I think about is, one, is the nature of what we are arguing about, is it valuable? Is it important? Is it necessary? Is it needed? Is it warranted? Is it worth the hassle? And what I mean by
Mm-hmm.
that, some people just argue to argue, right?
Yes.
Like you just arguing, like we're arguing over snacks. We're arguing why didn't use, right?
Yeah.
We're arguing about you need tos. And we both work jobs. We both are contributing members of society. I'm saying in these examples. And somebody wants to argue because the bed isn't made or the food isn't ready. Some of these arguments are just because people are arguing within themselves. They don't
That.
have they don't have good temperament, to
Mm-hmm.
begin with. And they are just destroying, deconstructing a valuable, good relationship because they don't have inner peace within themselves. So, my
Mm-hmm.
first thing is, am I going to argue with you about something that is meaningless and you're just upset? Period. You had a rough day at work, so you want to come home and kick the dog. I'm not the dog. I'm not having the conversation. I'm walking away from it. I'll talk to you later about it, you know, and if you want to keep pushing about it, I'll just leave for a while because my indicator is my emotional state, right? And I don't think we value our own intuition, our own inner wisdom that tells us you boiling a little bit, walk away. I think
Yes,
as
exactly.
men, we're fixers. We trying to fix. I'm not fixing shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hate to curse, but it's just whatever. It's Friday. Um, I'm not fixing anything that don't need to be fixed. If you got a problem, you need to fix you. Go see a counselor, go do something. But if I'm having a peaceful day and I've done nothing, now, if it's an argument about you see me talking to a woman or you seen a number in my phone or something that is toxic to the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we'll have to have that. But still, and yet, I still argue that that doesn't need to be had while tempers are flaring. You need a
No, and I
moderator.
agree.
You
Yeah,
need a
you're absolutely
moderator
correct.
at that point.
Yes.
You know, you need
Yeah.
an
And
even person in the middle to help you out. So I evaluate relationships in my arguments that I have within my own relationship like that. Like, is it necessary? The other thing is, I'm not going to yell. Period.
mhm.
I ain't gonna yell at all. Soon as the temperature raises and my voice or your voice gets heightened, it's shut down. That's it. You know, I'll see you in a little while. I'm going to go hang out. I'm going to go do something. I suggest you go do the same. And I think we need to get back to just having those boundaries. And that's what I want to bring that back to is boundaries. Certain lines can't be crossed in relationships when you love someone, right? You know, we've been getting our ass whooped by our parents, you know, like animals for years. I mean, be honest, right? When you're young, you get your butt whooped. They grab anything, whoop you, right? They're not teaching you to diffuse. You know, I think your parents actually are teaching you to be mean spirited and how to keep continuing to fight because it's times where my parents, when they were upset with me, they should have just walked away. And I find myself doing that more so with my own children. If I have a gripe with them, I just let it rest because that's why boundaries are important. Once you cross them, you
Yes,
can't
you can.
ever come back,
That
right?
part.
You change the whole dynamics of your relationships at the molecule level, at the molecular level. So
Hmm.
having boundaries in place is very important. Um, so what do you think about boundaries in relationships? I can talk forever, but please interject.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely in agreement. And again, I think that's kind of how we've gotten to where we are, like you said, is the boundaries are not being completely set from the beginning. They're not being readdressed when the time comes. And so, like you said, we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing or overlooking until again it comes to that volcano eruption. Something else I can tell you that I think is a big problem and that I noticed too is, I'm going to bring narcissists into the conversation at this point. So, piggybacking from when we were talking about, walking away from arguments or, when it's appropriate or whatever, to me, the problem that I struggle with are when we come to narcissistic individuals, especially because, a narcissist person, like you said, they want to start an argument so that your blood can boil. And the argument they start, it is an argument that you're sitting here like, why would you even have brought that up? And then they want to shut down. Then they don't want to talk about it. So they want to come to you with this serious problem or this serious statement, but then the very second you open your mouth to respond, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I'm ready. I'm going to bed. I'm going to shoot ball. I'm going, and they do not validate your feelings. They do not validate the situation. They don't own up to what they've done because in my mind, I'm thinking you started the conversation. I didn't. I was sitting here reading a book. You come in here and you brought this up. But now I'm supposed to be the bad person because I'm responding, or now I'm supposed to be quiet because you don't want to hear my response or you're not ready to get the comeback. And again, I think that also kind of ties back to boundaries, which we know with narcissistic people, they don't do well with boundaries. They normally don't have boundaries. They don't respect boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that, how can you love somebody? And I'm not saying that you again, this is kind of one of these blurry lines. Let me just put it that way. It's hard for me to understand that somebody could love somebody and intentionally bring someone up to bring a situation or something up to them, especially something that they know is probably going to push that person's button, cause them to get concerned, cause them to get upset, but then not let that person respond or not validate that person's feelings. But again, why would you even open that? Why would you go there? And I think that's where I've kind of always struggled, especially like you said with the boundaries. And because with me, that is a boundary for me. Do not approach me with a conversation that you're not ready to have. Because I'm the type of person like when the conversation's brought to the table, we're gonna talk about it. It's not gonna be you come sit down at the table, you approach me with a sentence or a question or whatever, and then you think that shutdown time we're gonna just get up and walk away. That's not gonna work with me. And I feel like that's what happens is a lot of times, especially again with narcissistic people, is they want to come in, they want to start this chaos, and then they want to walk away to then try to make it look as if you're the crazy one or you're the negative one or you're, the one that started everything. They didn't do anything. They were just trying to be in peace.
Yeah.
That's the problem that I have.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, but when we talking about narcissistic people, that term is like thrown around so loosely
It is. Absolutely.
in our culture. And there's not a person who I know who throws that definition around, that term around, and has a true psychological definition to even understand what it means to begin with. And I'm not picking on you. I pick on myself for that because I've thrown around narcissism myself. But the clinical side of it is quite scary because I have researched narcissistic people and narcissistic tendencies and traits. And I don't think that a person with true clinical narcissism has the ability to genuinely love because from what I understand from my research into that, the DSM-5 and other outlets and, countless YouTube videos over the topic, those people are detached from their emotions and they also suffer largely from bipolar disorder.
Yes.
Right. And bipolar is pretty close to a psychosis, not psychopathy, but sociopathic behaviors. And when you're dealing with a sociopath, there is no love in that brain when you're dealing with a true sociopath. And everybody is a means to an end, not an end to a means, right? So people are basically cannon fodder and used almost in a utility type fashion, in a utilitarian way, right? They use you for utility, for purpose, not for actually love and commitment. So people have to really take their time and learn about that. I think that you really need to, anyone who's just, especially my 18-year-olds just coming out of high school, or, people who are just now getting into relationships, if you don't have any experiences, a true narcissistic person will destroy every successful part of your life. And
Absolutely.
When you said that about the victim playing, them turning you into a victimizer by creating a situation and seeing you respond to it, that's that works every time. We have so many men and women sitting in jail right now because they didn't have self-control to begin with, and they're being manipulated, toyed with like a remote control by a manipulative sociopath who is bipolar, who has narcissistic traits. So that will blow your mind. The walking on eggshells is a crazy analogy, but is absolutely true.
Oh.
And think about a boss who's a narcissistic boss. Matter of fact, most people with those issues and traits, they have either they can be criminals or they can be geniuses, right? Those people will have you on eggshells. I think the biggest tool that you can use when you are dealing, and you can oppose this thought, but my thoughts is the biggest way to avoid a confrontation with a narcissist is to destroy the energy in the room,
Oh, absolutely.
right? You have to
Yeah,
go silent.
absolutely.
You have to go
Yeah.
silent with your emotions. You have to go silent with your actions. You have to
Hmm.
try to disappear as fast as possible. What do
Yeah.
you think?
Because they'll use anything for fuel. And
Yeah.
the second you give it to them, they just got another fire going and they just
Mm-hmm.
keep it going. So yeah, and a narcissist, you know, they're very tricky. And I think that until you realize that's what you're dealing with, um, like you said, you're in a losing battle because until you really start to pay attention to the signs, um, to the situations that are occurring, you know, all of it, then you're in a dangerous situation because like you said, that's exactly how they get people is they literally just keep spinning them into their web because the people usually do not realize that's what's going on. They don't realize how to fight it or how to get out of it. And they just keep giving more fuel to that person. I mean, all it takes is just a little bitty bit for them to feed off of before they
Yeah.
can completely burn down a whole entire building.
Yeah.
So yeah,
The,
I absolutely think
yeah.
that's
The
important.
ultimate goal of a narcissist is to eat you.
Hmm.
Pause. Is to consume you wholly, right? Because,
Yes.
like I said, you're a means to an end, something that they want to do. They may want a relationship 5 relationships up, and they've calculated that you're a good start to level 2.
Hmm.
And people have to pay attention to that. It is a spider web. It is a spider that's after you, that's ready to consume you. And when you're
Yeah.
done with the narcissist, you won't be the same. And that's one of the huge indicators that you've dealt with a narcissist. You won't be the same, right?
No.
But the biggest thing that narcissists start with is the love bombing. So take me back
Yes.
to the beginning of your relationship, how sweet and beautiful that thing was to start. Can you walk us through?
Absolutely.
All right.
I mean, to this day, I mean, if somebody were to put me on the witness stand, to this day, I'm still shocked that it even happened. And I still can't tell you how it happened because when I say that he was so genuine and so, I don't know, innocent in the beginning, you know, and it was actually kind of like, I guess for me, especially because I was younger, right? So for me, I was like, oh, wow, this is perfect. He's so nice. He's so, you know, blah, blah, blah. And that worked for the longest.
So he
And
had
then,
that
you know,
Lakeith Stanfield kind of look, right? You ever seen that
hmm,
guy? Yeah, the
yes,
innocent baby boy,
yes, and yes,
How can I help you,
yep,
mama look? Yeah, okay.
yep, that's it.
All right.
And you know, when the first blow up happened, it just took me by surprise. But like I said, you know, the first one, I just kind of didn't think about it because you know everybody gets upset at some time, right? We've all said the wrong thing at some point. Um, so I did, you know, I just thought, oh, he's upset or he's just, you know, and so I let that go. But then it was like everything started adding up. The little bitty things started turning into bigger things, and you know, until it was just almost like too late. And yeah, it that's how they get you. You're exactly right because that's
Yeah.
exactly what it was for me. Is and like I said, to this day, I would still tell you the same thing that I do not know how. I'm still shocked that it happened. I'm still shocked that he was the person that, you know, accomplished it because I never in my life would have thought that it was even possible for him to do such a thing.
Oh, yeah. But when I kind of I'm gonna pick on women a little bit and soft men to some degree, and I don't mean soft like not tough, but I mean just soft-hearted, kind-hearted men, because your interpretation of what you think a relationship should be, usually our minds are stoked in Hollywood nonsense, right? About
Yeah.
what a man is, what a relationship is. The acting that goes into those movies is partially to blame, and your ability to not separate yourself from the entertainment value of showbiz is why so many of us are in bad relationships to begin with. A genuine
Agree.
partner, a genuine person, sometimes that's overlooked, right?
Mhm.
When we are looking for relationships and partners, we are looking for that ideal concept. That's why I hear a lot of women say, "This is the type of man I want. He got to be this height, he got to have this much money, he got to have this. That's an archetype. That's not even truthful in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-mm.
You know, the same with women. You know, when women take their makeup off, they look different sometimes. Men get out their shoes, you know, dirty, nasty, come home from work. That's gross. Like if you're a firefighter, right? Everybody's like, oh, you know, I want a hot firefighter. No, they're not hot when they come home smelling like smoke. And you know they need to take a shower for 3 hours to get the smoke scent off of their bodies, right? Nothing's
Mm-hmm.
hot about that, but in your mind, you have these visual concepts of the way people should be. Realistically,
Right.
you know, I encourage people, especially how I would avoid in running into and encountering a narcissistic person is not get on a date and be an actor, right?
Right.
Get on a date, be yourself 100%. My first date with my wife, I talk a lot of shit. That's what I like to do. I don't want to fold, you know, she's beautiful, beautiful as ever, but I didn't want to like be different to try to attract
Yeah.
her more because that's what narcissist people do. They act
Yeah.
according to what you want them to be, and they can pick up on what you want
Oh,
out of a lover, right?
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We got people cutting their shins out and growing an extra inch so they can be 6 feet tall. To me, that's some narcissistic shit right there. You want to be tall, you're not as confident, so you're gonna cut your shins out and add an extra inch so you can be a taller person. You're gonna have problems in relationships regardless, buddy, because one, you're not confident with yourself. You
Right.
know, two, you want to be something else than what you are, and what God gave you. You know what I'm saying? So I would encourage people to be themselves, and that's one thing my wife probably tell you on our first date is, yeah, I'm truly myself.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I know for me, I don't necessarily look for looks in a male. I look for what they're going to bring to the table. I look for, you know, how are you going to provide? What can you provide? Time. Time is the biggest thing for me. I just want your time. I don't care if you're overly rich. I don't care if you're, because at the end of the day, the materialistic things, they're out the window. What I
Right.
can't get back is you. I cannot get that time. I can't get that memory. I can't get that, you know, that last kiss, or I can't get that back once you're gone. Um, so, you know, there's a lot of different things that I think I value outside of what most people may consider a value in a relationship. Because, like you said, you may get a firefighter, but it's not the firefighter on the television. You may get a police officer, but it's not. And I dated a police officer, and I'm going to tell you that was the roughest relationship that I've ever had. I'm serious. It really was. And I said never
No.
again. And no offense to police officers. No offense. I'm definitely big supporters. I appreciate everything that you all do, but it's rough. It is truly, truly rough, especially because, you know, they have to hit that night shift. The shift changes, and, you know, and it's almost like you get a different personality with each change, because their brain and their sleep pattern is alternating, right? Um, those type of relationships, they've never been for me. And I don't even know why I gave that one a shot, but I did. And I said never again because it was just hard. But I think, like you said, if we come to the table honest from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and we have this understanding, like you said, of what we value, what we like, what we're looking for, and vice versa on both sides, you're not going to have too many problems. I mean, yes, you're going to hit your growth spurts and you're each going to change, but like I said, if you're valuing and changing together, or
Mm-hmm.
supporting the change of both sides as the change is happening, you're fine. But
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes the change may be to a point to where maybe it doesn't fit anymore and you do have to let it go or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But yeah, I think it's all about honesty. And I think that's why we're starting to see a lot of issues in relationships and divorces and things like that, because people come to the table with a falsehood, a false truth. They're not fully open with everything. And so when they get to that point in the relationship and now it's time, it's like, oh no, you
Yeah.
know, and then now we've got the truth that comes out on the table. And now you've invested all this time, and now it's really hard to let it go. It's really hard to not hold resentment or whatever, because you've invested time on a lie.
Yeah. In a nutshell, stop watering yourself down for people. You know,
Yes.
stop being bendable and foldable, and malleable. Be who you are and enjoy who you are. And it all comes back to self love.
Absolutely.
You invest so much time in people, but not enough time into yourself, developing who you want to be. A lot of people need to learn that. I had to learn that myself. Like I gotta be who I am. I love that song. I gotta be me, right? I gotta be me. There's nothing I'm gonna
Yeah.
change about myself. I don't feel like I'm not around here shooting people. I'm doing just fine. And if I'm not your cup of tea, I suggest you go back to the shop and go find you another blend. And
Yeah.
I think we have to adopt that strong instinct. And I can tell you, like, one thing that really helped me out was a book called The Six Pillars of Self Esteem. I think
Oh,
people should look that book up. I'll make sure I put that in the comments section below, in the description section of this YouTube, because Six Pillars of Self Esteem helps you realize that you never had the self esteem to begin with that you thought you had. It was all just a preconceived notion, an ideal of what you thought respect and honor and being having true authentic self-esteem was. You never had it to begin with. And a great part of that book was, um, so this person, the author who wrote the book, he's dating a famous philosopher, and she's
mhm.
like wildly famous. I can't remember the name. um, and the way he's describing this relationship, he says, she is a she is like software. She's running on a program, right?
Oh,
Um, she doesn't connect with me. We don't have love. We don't have these things. Even though I do the things that I'm supposed to do in this relationship, we're not making that connection because I've realized that I am the cognitive person in the relationship. She's a great doctor at philosophy, right? And she's well respected in the community. But in this relationship, she's just running on a program. I'm the cognitive person in the relationship because I'm the person who can step back and look at the relationship from afar and realize
hmm.
that this relationship should never have been. And I had all the tools in the beginning to control how far I let this relationship go. I never should have been there to begin with. And that's what he was saying. The relationship had broken up. He was heartbroken. All these things went by the wayside. And when he finally took a step back and looked, he said, I was the cognitive person who was holding on to this relationship. She was never in the relationship to begin with. Essentially, what he was saying is I played myself by bending and folding for someone else because they had something and I'm gonna pick on women. That's why we got a lot of women who, got a guy who's been in prison for 12 years, no job, no nothing, but he looks like Shamar Moore, and that's cool, right? Oh great,
Yeah.
he's all mine. Yeah, you can have nobody wants him except you and the other idiots who are, taking people for looks. But when we get into these patterns of wanting people for something instead of wanting them for the person who they are and the good values and traits that they have, that's how we fall into these traps to begin with. Um,
Oh, I really agree.
yeah, it's quite a shame. I really feel like relationships should be one of the biggest subjects that should be taught in school. I think you should learn in around the 10th grade relationship patterns in school, what to
I
look out
agree.
for, what's a healthy relationship, what's this, what's that. So yes, it's quite amazing. Yeah, I'm glad that you made it through the storm. Um, it seems like you are really out there pushing this magazine.
Yes.
Um, Pushing you're in the podcast circuit, doing your thing. Your name is kind of buzzing. You've made some strong connections in certain industries. Tell me about, let's jump shift. Tell me about some of the contacts that you made along your journey of getting this magazine off the ground.
I've had some amazing contacts. I have a wonderful PR rep. She's definitely supported me through this since the beginning of the magazine. She has definitely put me in connection with people that I never thought that I'd be able to have contact with. I can't really release a lot of names, but definitely people in, like LA, um, obviously that are working with, actors and, things like that. Um, so many conversations. I mean, so many conversations. People outside of the United States and Dubai and in Canada and in Australia. It's just been a wonderful experience because I never intended for this to happen. I never intended to start a magazine, but the creator was like, I have other plans for you. This is your assignment, and this is what I need you to do. And so now we're on the seventh issue, continuing on. Like I said, we're going to be starting the men's magazine in June, which I'm super duper excited about. We've also launched a women's anthology, and we are working on launching the men's anthology as well. So,
Wow, congratulations on that. Now, Puff Daddy, P Diddy, he's only got like a year, maybe and 8 months left. So when he gets
mhm.
out, I'm sure he's going to be trying to like contact some people who have magazines. What are you going to say if he gets out and he's like, "Hey, I want to, I want to be a part of this men's magazine." What are you going to say? How are you going to resist that one? How are you going to resist?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a tough, I don't know. That's a tough one because like, but at the same time, and I think this is the problem we have as a society, that man had some trauma too. And I'm not excusing what he did. I'm not condoning it by any sense because to me, I'll never be able to wrap my head around what the man did. But when you really sit down and you listen or you even kind of rewind back to some of the things that he spoke on or, he rapped about or whatever, you can see that trauma coming through. You can hear the cry out for help. And I think if we really kind of sit and we really focus and listen to these people in Hollywood, at some point they've all cried out for help. At some point they've all said, "I'm at my breaking point." At some point they've all said, "Okay, I'm switching over," or I'm going downhill, and nobody ever pulled them out. And I think that every person, regardless of good or bad or what we consider good or bad. I think every person has a story. And I think everybody still deserves to have their voice heard. Now, am I saying that I personally would want to sit down and actually talk to Puff Daddy if that was the opportunity? No, probably not. No offense. Um, but at the same time, I definitely guarantee you that man has a lot of interesting things to say. And now that he's had to go through this whole experience, I guarantee you he's got way more than what he even thought he had to say. That would
Yeah.
be interesting.
Well,
Um,
he's Brother Love now. He's not Puff anymore, I guess. He changed before
yeah.
he went in. He's so manipulative, though. I mean,
Hmm.
I have a lot of heart for men, even when they make mistakes, because oftentimes we are overlooked,
Exactly.
before we make those mistakes to begin with, like you just mentioned. The love factor just ain't there for men sometimes as a culture, um,
No.
especially when you talk about child custody cases. The unequal marriage laws that happen sometimes where men lose most of the shit that they have. And then coupled with
Hmm.
but anyway, he would be one person that I was quite appalled with as a man because he seemed to enjoy breaking people, and that's
Exactly.
and that's so strange that you
Yeah.
have so much money and so much opportunity and so much success, and the only thing that gets you off is beating people, men and women, raping men and women, throwing pee on men and women. Like, what is wrong with you? He is a psychopath. He should. I was. I'm surprised he got out, but he's so good at manipulating situations. I mean, he saw right through the whole criminal justice system. You know,
Yeah.
he's an actor by nature, and
Hmm.
I've never seen. I've seen a lot of manipulative people, but that's a different animal right there.
Yeah. People like him are dangerous. Absolutely dangerous.
Yeah.
Very smart. They know before they even step foot into the crowd what they need, what they want, how to get it, how to devour it once they get it. They do not care who it is. And that's exactly what I've seen from this. And that's why I don't think even if the opportunity came knocking on the door, that I could open that door for him, because I'm just not down with the whole entire situation. I definitely wouldn't want to tie myself into that type of energy. But as I stated, I do know that that man has got some trauma, and I guarantee you, no one has truly probably worked that trauma out, or have probably not really truly brought that trauma to the light. Again, I'm not excusing what the man has done, because I mean, like you said, there are no words for what that man has done. None. I mean, it's sickening. But at the same time, like you said, when is enough going to be enough? When are we going to start caring and attempting to try to break these traumas, or help people to break the traumas, help people to see, when something doesn't look right or seem right? How far are we going to keep letting things go? Because if we have to be truthful, I mean, we can't really just blame him. I mean, these people allowed it to go on for this long. These
Man,
people stayed along with the game. So, I mean, why are we just
man.
pointing the finger at him? Why is he the only one getting the negative and the harsh feedback and all this? Why are we not also focusing on the people that supported this?
Yeah.
Everybody knew it was in circle.
The police knew, right?
Mhm.
Everybody knew.
Yeah.
Even the victims knew, which is something that I did want to kind of poke on, because I took a criminology class a while ago in college, and speaking from a criminologist standpoint, the victim plays equal parts into the crime, and that's how
Yeah.
they're able to catch bad people, by seeing what, or avoiding situations from repeating themselves, excuse me, by public service announcements and warnings and awareness campaigns. And that's how they calculate that, seeing what part of a crime that a victim played into their own victimization. And
Mhm.
that goes against the general philosophy of American Western civilization or culture when it comes to women. I can do anything. And actually, the case was about rape that we talked about, because what he was doing was, he said, okay, you have a criminal who's going to do a crime 100%, right? Or
Mhm.
wants to do a crime 100%. That criminal is at 50%, right, from the start. But you, being the victim, you start out at an even zero, because you have nothing to do with this. So when you go to a party, right? He said, I think
Mhm.
he mentioned, like, that's 5% of your victimization. When you get drunk, that's 10%. When you do drugs, that's another 10%. When you put on that short skirt, that's another 5%. When you walk down that alley after the party, that's the other 5%. That's what's left over, whatever, if I did the math right. That's the 5% that meets you for a crime of 100%, where you're the victim, right?
Mhm.
So I feel
Yes.
like, although women and men have these ideas like, I can do anything, realistically, when you're talking about criminality and being a victim outside even criminality, just a victim of circumstances, you
Mhm.
have to watch out for what percentage of the crime or the circumstance that allows you to become part of it to begin with. So listening
Right.
to your intuition is huge. That's the thing that lets us not walk out into the dark, right? And that saved us from saber-toothed tigers, and animals that were prehistoric, since we
Yes.
became people. And we don't listen to that anymore. It's a shame. I did want to pick on Hollywood really quick, since we were on to that anyway, because I have a bone to pick with so many people in society that bend over backwards for people who they don't even know, superstars, right? People who are actors, right? Let's just say Hollywood in general. We have a very jacked up culture where you will give up a relationship to sleep with Usher, right? And not picking on Usher, but I did hear that he had some disease. I don't know. It was funny. I mean, I'm sorry, not funny. I gotta edit that. But no, it was. It was a big joke back then when he allegedly had that. But like people will bend over backwards for these stars. They'll go to these events. Uh, if R. Kelly offers them something, they're going backstage with him. And then even the parents, like when you look at like the cases of like R. Kelly, parents were sending their own children upstairs in hotel rooms with a grown ass man to go record vocals. How idiotic! How are we that? How are we that misinformed as people? How are we that brainwashed to allow fame and these, like, you got the Harvey Weinsteins come up to my room at 3 a.m. for an audition? What? That's ridiculous to me. Why are we so? And I want you to speak to that because you're heading in that direction. You'll eventually probably be very famous and have like these magazines and podcasts and have your own little Tasha K thing going on. What do you think about Hollywood and the grip hold that it has on our culture? Like we're losing women and men to this.
I agree, absolutely. But this is my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think because, again, we have been brought up into a false society. We have been completely stripped of all truth from history, all truth from ourselves, all truth from cultures, et cetera, that when we came in, whoever started this society and the shenanigans made sure that society was brainwashed to a point to where we worship money, we worship people, whatever it is that seems to be the high or the importance. That's where our focus should be. That's what we should put everything into. And I kind of think that's how Hollywood got into the position that it is and got such a strong hold on people, is because, again, we've been brainwashed all this time to not know any better, to not see the truth and past the veil, to only see what has been painted in front of us. I mean, if you pay attention to a lot of the movies we watch, they've got secret messages in them. You just have to be awake enough to actually read it and understand it. But because a lot of this has been in our face for years, but everybody just thought, oh, it's just a movie. Oh, it's just a joke. Oh, it's just a comedy skit. No, oh, it's just reality. And now we're here. And so I think, again, that's kind of the hold that Hollywood has had, is because what is Hollywood? It's fake. It's all fake. And they live to come and put on a show or a play or an entertainment something for people. And if you think about it, how could those people truly be anything outside of that to a full extent when they constantly kind of have to stay in some form of a character? Like, when exactly are they taking enough break to where they're coming back into reality? So like I said, I feel sorry for our Hollywood people because they've been brainwashed just as much as us as, if not worse, truthfully. They go through this torture, is basically what I call it, to have to play half of these parts and pieces that they play in these movies and shows that we watch. They're pretty much already losing a piece of themselves, if not a whole half of themselves. I mean, we're seeing it. You look at people now and you're like, oh, is that such and such? Oh, I didn't know that was, and it's because they're changing because of this drastic nonsense that's being created in Hollywood. And I feel like we're also feeding back into them because who is saving them? Nobody's saving them. We're just making it more, oh, yeah, we want more. We want more. Show us this, show us that. Guys, these people are drowning. These people are no longer human, is what I feel like. I feel like they've lost their humanity. But I also feel like a lot of us who are not seeing the fakery here, like you said, and we're so quick to give up our house to go get a ticket, or we're so quick to, we're just as guilty because we obviously aren't seeing it. We're obviously just as bad as them, to where we would literally almost change our skin or put on whatever to fit the piece. And that I think that's what's happening. I think that's exactly, and again, anybody that can't see that Hollywood is just an entertainment fake reality, then there's something wrong. And I think we've been knowing something's wrong for a while, because as we can see, there's so many people still sleep out here. So many that they're not seeing Hollywood is just a movie, guys. It's not reality.
Man, well said. Um, okay. Well, man, this has been a very fascinating conversation. I've enjoyed it, honestly. I mean, anybody who can get me to talk and ramble, it's a great conversation for me. So yeah, I really enjoy I really enjoy, the different topics that we hit over. I enjoy, I guess the audience, we all enjoyed learning about you as well. So let me just go ahead and do this. While we have a little time, why don't you go ahead and plug yourself? Tell people where they can get a hold of you again. Tell them, just how to get in contact with you and what's new, what's happening with you, what's on the horizon.
Yes. So we have open submissions each month for the magazine. We currently run the Men of Impact within the Fierce and Fearless magazine. Again, that'll branch out to its own magazine in June for the men issue. We just started our Let's Talk About It section for the Fierce and Fearless. We will continue that in the men's section as well. Basically, we'll be touching on topics kind of like what we discussed today, topics that a lot of people are not really comfortable having, but know that they're necessary. We also have our book signing for the Fierce and Fearless Phoenix Rises from the Ashes. Our women's anthology will be in Atlanta at Ray Southern Foods, February 21st from 4:30 to 7:30. And then, like I said, we are also in the process of looking for our next set of men to launch our men of, or not men of impact, but to launch our men's anthology as well, to go aside with the women's anthology. So we have a lot of things going on. You can reach us at fierceandfearlessentrepreneur.com, Fierce Fearless Entrepreneur 2025 at gmail.com, or you can check us out on Facebook or Instagram at Fierce and Fearless Entrepreneur.